For over a century, the Panama Canal has had a monopoly on how the world moves goods between the Atlantic and Pacific. Every major shipping company routes through those 51 miles of water. Mexico just spent $7.5 billion to challenge that monopoly directly. A 188-mile rail corridor through the southern Mexican jungle that moves cargo across 2 oceans in 9 hours. This is the story of Mexico's Interoceanic Corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, how it was built, why the Panama Canal's drought crisis gave it the opening it needed, and what it means when a $7.5 billion land bridge starts pulling cargo away from the world's most powerful waterway. To understand what Mexico just built, you need to understand what made Panama untouchable. The canal is a 51-mile water elevator. Ships enter a lock system. Fresh water from Gatun Lake lifts them over a continental divide, and they emerge on the other side of the American continent. It handles roughly 6% of all global maritime trade. Before it opened in 1914, the only alternative was sailing around the southern tip of South America, adding weeks to every crossing. For 111 years, there was no serious competition. You used the canal, or you went the long way. Mexico just built the alternative. The canal that started running out of water. The Panama Canal has one structural weakness. It runs entirely on rain. Every transit draws roughly 200,000 tons of freshwater from Gatun Lake. In 2023, the rainy season failed to arrive on schedule. The lake dropped to its lowest level in decades. The Canal Authority cut daily transits from 36 to 38 ships down to 24. Ships queued for up to 22 days. Some shippers paid tens of millions in premium fees to jump the line. Others rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope or through the Suez Canal, adding up to 2 weeks to already long journeys. The canal recovered in fiscal year 2025, posting $5.7 billion in revenues as rainfall returned. But climate projections suggest 2023 and 2024 were a preview. Panama is now spending $1.6 billion on a new reservoir on the Rio Indio River, a dam connected to Gatun Lake by a 5-mile tunnel. Construction begins in 2027 and is not expected to finish before 2031. Approximately 2,500 residents will be displaced, and communities facing relocation have already filed legal challenges. The canal will survive, but the world noticed the most important shipping route on the planet runs on rainfall. The corridor that does not need rain. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec is the narrowest point in southern Mexico, 188 miles of land between 2 oceans. People have been staring at it on maps for 500 years. A railway was actually built here in 1907. It moved cargo for 7 years, became briefly the hottest shipping route in the Americas, and then the Panama Canal opened in 1914, and the operation was abandoned. The tracks rusted. The idea sat shelved for over a century. Mexico pulled it off the shelf in 2019. Construction moved fast. Freight service began August 2023. By early 2026, the corridor's 4 ports connected to 82 international destinations and handled close to 20% of Mexico's total national cargo. The proof of concept came in spring 2025. Hyundai and its logistics arm moved 900 vehicles from South Korea to the U.S. East Coast via southern Mexico. The rail crossing took 9 hours. The full ocean-to-ocean transfer completed in 72 hours. During the worst Panama Canal drought restrictions, some Asia to U.S. routes stretched to 15 or 20 days. Mexico's corridor handles its segment before lunch. The industrial bet running alongside the rail line. The railway is only half the project. The other half is economic. The states of Oaxaca and Veracruz, through which the corridor runs, have historically been among Mexico's poorest. The government designed 14 industrial development zones along the route, offering tax incentives and direct logistics access, targeting global manufacturers moving supply chains closer to the U.S. market. By 2023, those zones had attracted $4.5 billion in investment commitments. Full operational capacity is targeted for 2026. Construction created an estimated 80,000 jobs in an area where formal employment had been scarce for generations. However, the project has not arrived without cost. Indigenous communities across the 79 affected municipalities have documented land disputes, inadequate consultation, and rising violence. Homicide rates in Salina Cruz more than doubled between the pre-project period and 2024. Environmental assessments have flagged deforestation risks across a region of significant biodiversity. The government's security model places full Navy and National Guard control along all 188 miles. Critics describe the results as something other than security. The economic story is real. So are the complications running alongside it? Can Mexico actually challenge Panama? The honest answer? Not yet. But direction matters more than current numbers. The Panama Canal moved 13,404 vessels in fiscal year 2025. The CIIT is targeting 300,000 containers annually by 2028, rising to 1.4 million by 2033. Panama moves 8.3 million containers per year. The volume gap is large, but the two routes do not serve identical cargo. The canal moves bulk carriers and tankers alongside containers. The corridor specializes in containerized freight and automotive shipments, where fast land crossing is an advantage. For that category of cargo, the CIIT's 9-hour crossing offers something Panama fundamentally cannot: zero dependence on weather. There is one structural difference worth naming directly. The Panama Canal moves a single ship through from one ocean to the other without a change of vessel. The CIIT is a land bridge. Cargo is unloaded at one port, railed across the isthmus, and reloaded onto a second ship at the other end. That transshipment step adds handling costs, port fees, and loading time to every movement. For bulk commodities where speed is secondary, this makes the corridor less competitive on cost. For time-sensitive cargo and automotive shipments, or during canal disruptions when Panama queues stretch to 22 days, the CIIT's 9-hour crossing can still win the math. But the two-ship model is a real trade-off that shippers factor into every routing decision. Panama's $1.6 billion reservoir will not be operational until 2031. Until then, every dry season is a potential repeat of 2023. The corridor's full operational status is targeted for June 2026. For the first time in 111 years, the canal has a credible competitor. The competitor does not need a rain cloud. Each Panama Canal transit uses roughly 200,000 tons of fresh water. At 40 ships per day in a normal year, that is 8 million tons consumed daily from a single lake to keep global shipping moving. The 1907 Tehuantepec Railway moved over 850,000 tons of cargo in its first 6 years, then rusted in the jungle for 109 years. The infrastructure Mexico is running cargo on today is the fifth version of the same idea across 500 years. Panama earns roughly 6% of its entire GDP from canal operations. The equivalent would be the United States funding its entire interstate highway system from a single toll bridge. During the 2023 drought, ships queued up to 22 days for a canal slot. Mexico's corridor completed the same trans-isthmus crossing in 9 hours. The CIIT ports now connect to 82 international destinations and handle close to 20% of Mexico's total national cargo, all within 2 years of starting commercial operations. But here's the question the shipping industry is not yet answering publicly. Mexico's corridor is militarized from end to end. The Navy controls the ports. The National Guard patrols the rails. The government calls this a feature. Critics point to homicide rates in corridor towns that more than doubled since construction began and argue that militarization and safety are not the same outcome. Then there is the land question. Industrial zones sit on and near territory belonging to indigenous communities across Oaxaca and Veracruz, communities with documented histories of exclusion from legally required consultations. Several are fighting back through courts. Some have organized physical resistance. Can Mexico run a world-class trade route through a region with unresolved land rights, rising violence, and communities that never agreed to the project? The trains are moving, the investment is arriving. The answer is still being written. To be fair, Panama has heard this before. Every generation produces someone staring at a map of the Tehuantepec Isthmus, thinking they discovered something. Hernán Cortés proposed a crossing in 1520. Spanish viceroys passed the idea around for 2 centuries. Alexander von Humboldt calculated the route in the early 1800s. American capitalists built the 1907 railway. Every one of them was eventually outmaneuvered. Mexico has attempted this crossing 5 times in 500 years. 4 failed. The 5th has a 9-hour rail crossing and Hyundai running automotive pilots across it. History is not always a warning. Sometimes it is just a retry. Here is what we know for certain. The Panama Canal is the greatest engineering shortcut in human history. It is also dependent on 200,000 tons of fresh water per transit in a region where droughts are becoming more frequent. Its fix is a $1.6 billion reservoir that will not be ready until 2031. Mexico has built a 188-mile rail corridor that moved 900 vehicles across 2 oceans in 72 hours without a single drop of rain. Its ports connect to 82 international destinations. Full operations are targeted for June 2026. The canal is not finished. The corridor is not going away. For 111 years, the world had one way across the Americas. It now has 2. The trains are already running.